Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to talk a little bit about fashion and textiles, and I guess when we start to think about the future of work, we start to look at different industries. And it's amazing to think about the different type of skills that you might need. And we've already heard, you're probably not going to just need one skill set, but probably a whole host of different skill sets. And I must say for myself, I would never have imagined I would have ended up working in fashion and textiles. Because my first skill set that I learned was around sustainability, environmental and urban planning. So to sort of then move to textile design, and I actually moved to three-dimensional shape knitting. So that became my PhD. And now I get to do, in terms of teaching and research. But my research is incredibly multidisciplinary. I work with architects, industrial designers, a whole host of people, material engineers. So that sort of future is probably something that for you will become quite natural. So you will hop between multiple skills. Let's make sure. So when we think of the fashion and textile industry, it's traditionally, when we go back 200 years to the first industrial revolution, it was very skill-based. It was very labour-intensive. Today, we're in a world where automation is taking over. We can sew a t-shirt in 22 seconds, or a sew bot can. That suddenly has a really profound impact in terms of the way the whole supply chain of the fashion and textiles operates. But perhaps in the future, we need to think quite radically different. Rather than just thinking in a linear way in terms of how we use our materials, we have to think in a more circular way so that we actually think about the type of processes, materials, and skills that we work with. When we think about the fashion industry, there are some really key things driving it. And these give you a clue as to the type of skill sets and also potential employment opportunities. So things like sustainability, new materials, how we're going to engineer our materials that we wear in the future. Digital data, the idea that we have fashion data, what does that mean? What is the ethics of that? What is the privacy related to that? Automation, and of course, artificial intelligence. When we think about sustainability, there's a huge lot of work going on in that area, and it's opening up incredible opportunities in terms of employment. So thinking about the supply chain, your clothes pass through many different people, and it's really complex and really hard to know where it's coming from. So there's a whole host of areas that are looking at improved ways that we work with materials, and also the way in which we move materials around the world. Perhaps with automation, it might bring our making closer to us. We also have to be mindful that when we're talking about technology changes, it's also being driven by you. In terms of changing consumers, consumer behaviour is a huge area for fashion. So when you think of understanding what is the mindset of someone, do they want to buy something? Maybe they don't. How do they buy and how do they purchase? They're also asking more questions. Who made my clothes? Where are they made? How well are they made? Are you happy that they're made, ethically? Do you want that? It leads to new technologies being developed and linked. So things like blockchain. We have a whole host of areas in terms of new materials. So it's not only the type of materials that we're going to work with, so whether they're natural materials, they're probably not. Are they going to be synthetic materials? Are we going to grow our materials in terms of our clothing? It also leads to new technologies such as the 3D printer. Maybe the way in which we make our clothes will be quite different to what it's been in the past. Quite likely, our clothes will be smarter in the future. So already, if you think of concepts like the Internet of Things, where you have things being embedded into the material itself, it means that your clothes might monitor and be able to actually be more responsive. Rather than you deciding, am I hot or cold, your clothes might work out. Actually, it's pretty cold outside. It needs to change to adapt to that. Equally, it will link to a more personal experience. Likewise, we might be growing our clothes. There's a whole host of work going on in the area of biomaterials. So when you start to think about how might our clothes be, if we're thinking about things like fast fashion, we only want to wear a garment once or twice. Does it need to be designed to last forever? Maybe we want it only to last for a moment, but we can put it in our garden and know that it's not going to be toxic. The other key area is the amount of data that's out there. Has anyone gone into a shopping centre and had their body scanned? You get given a picture of your body, you've got this data, and then you've got an opportunity, you can share it with people. This is an example where you can put a suit on, you can take your photo at home in your own privacy, and then share it with a company to actually have customised clothing. As I said, automation, the sew bots are here. So likely to produce a t-shirt in 22 seconds. Probably the way in which the material choices we might want to change. It means that rather than having lots of people doing manual jobs, we'll have highly skilled people having to be very clever in terms of the operation and working with the machines. It will also lead probably to a more on-demand manufacturing. At the moment, we work around mass manufacturing. So we might produce 100,000 t-shirts a day, but in actual fact, a lot of it sits there and never gets worn. So the idea that you could actually send your data when you decide you want a particular garment and be able to have it produced. It's also leading, the thing about technology is to far more accessible and affordable. So it means that as a designer, you can, it makes it far more accessible. Anyone could design their own shoes. Anyone could design their own garments. You might co-design with someone. You see something on the internet, you like it, you work out what colour you like, you've got your body data, and then you can link it to a small machine. It could be in the back of, at home or in your local neighbourhood. All of this is changing how we design. And I guess the nice thing is when you think about the image that Sean showed at the start, that top corner was around creativity and social skills. They're really crucial in terms of how we design. We won't be designing in isolation, we'll be designing in small teams. If you think about, you're going to have to work with material engineers, the electronic engineer, to understand what's going on in terms of the material performance, to then be able to link it to the manufacturing, and then on to the retail. How we experience fashion is also changing, and that changes the type of jobs. Less likely is going to be someone sitting, a general person as a shop assistant, but that person might have to be really trained in terms of understanding consumer behaviour, as well as understanding the technology and the capabilities of what that garment of the future might be. It also means that you might not go into a shop to try on your clothes anymore. It can be done virtually in terms of how you engage and react. Ultimately, what this leads to is that fashion is a growth industry. It currently is $2.5 trillion of revenue a year, and it's expected to double in the next 10 years. It currently employs over 60 million people. Now that is perhaps the unknown. How many of those jobs will still be in the future? But what we do know is areas like new luxury will be maintained. And that idea of creativity working with technology becomes a really incredible opportunity. When we think about technology, and you as a consumer, you're about to embark potentially on a long career, you could be doing multiple things in your career, it's worth considering that it's society that really is about transforming, and it uses that technology to transform. It means that when we think about what is our clothing and our fashions of the future, they'll be a reflection of our society. It means when we're thinking about the type of skill sets, yes, you need technical skills, a whole host, and that concept of lifelong learning. But it needs to be combined with things like creativity, critical thinking. I think you're going to hear these terms a few times tonight. Collaboration and teamwork. The idea of having empathy and being able to work with people. So that group work becomes incredibly important. And ultimately, flexibility. The type of thing that you might be doing today, you certainly won't be doing in a couple of years' time, and you won't be doing it in 5 years' time. The job that you have in 5 to 10 years possibly doesn't exist yet, but it's coming. That can be scary, but it can also be incredibly exciting to think about what is the future in terms of those employment opportunities. So ultimately, by having those things like strong problem solving and interpersonal skills can really set you up for a career that could take you across all of any industry effectively. So thank you.